Hi everyone, I'm Liam Eagle. I'm the editor here at the WHIR, and I'd like to welcome you all to another of our WHIR webinars. Today's session is titled Hosting Automation, Tools to Improve Your Bottom Line, as you can see on the screen there. And it's going to feature presentations from Todd Mitchell of the Innovations Group at SoftLayer and Drew Jenkins, who is Manager of Channel Sales at SoftLayer. Todd has been involved in a few of these WHIR webinars, and if you'd like to, you can go back and have a look at the archived videos of some of those sessions at thewhir.com/webinars. I'll let Todd and Drew introduce themselves in a moment, and I'll turn things over to them. But before I do, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping notes. I spoke to Todd earlier, and he said that they were planning to make the slides available from the presentation to you guys if you wanted them. And if you want a copy of those, the contact info will be up at the end of the presentation, so you can reach out to one of the presenters directly and get a hold of the slides that way. There will also be a video archive of the session on the WHIR site, so if you want to go back through them that way with the presentation accompanying, you can certainly do it that way. There will be some time at the end for a Q&A period, but if you want to submit your questions throughout the presentation, I'll keep an eye on them while these guys present, and if something really relevant to what's being said at the time comes up, I will try to find a polite spot to interrupt them and sort of pose the question to them. We will have a record of all the questions that are asked, so if we don't get to your question, don't worry about it. Somebody will follow up after the fact, email or even by phone or something like that. Finally, if you have a question that you'd rather not ask out in public, so to speak, and you would sort of rather follow up privately, again, the contact info for the presenters will be on screen during the Q&A period. So without any further preamble, I'm going to turn things over to Todd and let he and Drew introduce themselves properly. Guys?
Great. Thanks, Liam. This is Todd Mitchell speaking. I have Drew Jenkins in here as well with me. And you guys have probably heard my voice before. I've been a part of many of the past webinars here at SoftLayer, and now this one. So, sorry, I was just taking control from Liam and a slight distraction. So you guys should now see my screen and our title page today. So today, really, we'll talk about our personal introductions and who we are, why what we're saying makes sense. It's really from our experience. We'll take you through the importance of automation and why we think it's critical to hosting, and then we'll just have Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, just submit them to Liam, and if they're relevant to the time that we're talking, Liam, please feel free to jump in and ask the question. More than happy to take them. And then, of course, at the end, we'll save a little bit of time so that you guys can certainly get any questions in that you have regarding this or anything else related to hosting. We certainly pretty good wealth of knowledge here. So just before we get into introductions, I think it's important just to get something sort of out into the open. Obviously, recently there's been a merger between the Planet and SoftLayer. So Drew and I are coming over from the Planet side and joining the SoftLayer team. It's 600 or 700 employees strong now. Just a really great wealth of talent here. And I think everyone's really excited for the opportunity to move forward. Certainly combining the skill set and talent of both organizations is really great for the industry, and it's going to be really great for customers. So,
and for the partner channel. There are a lot of advantages as a result of this merger that our partners can certainly benefit from. So we're very excited about that.
So if you guys have any specific questions related to the merger, feel free to ping Drew or I separately after the webinar. I'm more than happy to discuss the merger on the phone or through email or what have you. So I just wanted to get that out there in case you guys had any specific questions. So as a personal introduction, my name is Todd Mitchell. I've recently changed groups. So I was part of the innovation group. I'm now leading what we call internally the market intelligence group. And the market intelligence group is a new group that's designed to handle a short-term tactical strategy, long-term business strategy, look at customer acquisition, customer purchasing and sales, any of those trends, as well as help with the board board and various other things. So it's really taking both sort of high level and really in the weeds type of views of the entire industry to make sure that we understand what our customers are doing, what they are looking for, and to keep an eye out on any sort of emerging technologies or trends in markets, and to make sure that we're constantly delivering solutions for our customers. In addition to that, I'll be spending a ton of time with our customers as well as in the field at trade shows and what have you, getting to know everyone a little bit better so that, as we roll out solutions, they actually solve problems that exist in the hosting industry today. And hopefully with your input, we can actually help, you guys can actually help guide some of our roadmaps so that we're building solutions that are really sort of customized for your operations. Just a really brief bit of history. I've been in hosting for just over 10 years. Started off in Montreal with a company called Natural Disguise, and then ran Site 5 for a while. That's a California web hosting company. We sold that in 2007. I moved over to the Planet and ran several lines of business for the Planet until the merger with SoftLayer. And now at SoftLayer, I run market intelligence. So pretty good track record for hosting. There's not a lot to say there. I love hosting. It's really who I am. That's why I've stayed in the industry for a long time. Really entered the industry right around when sort of Robert Marsh was starting EV1 and launching that $99 dedicated server. So I've been around for a while. My personal contact info is at the bottom there if you guys just want to jot it down. I'll show it to you guys again at the end of the slideshow. So if you guys have any questions related to hosting, the merger, anything really, more than happy to talk to you guys. So take down my email address. That's my actual cell phone number, so you guys can call me if you'd want. Text me. Just make sure it's during reasonable hours. That's all I ask. That's it for me, Drew. Why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. First of all, I want to thank the participants for joining. We're very glad to have you on the line, and we expect to provide quite a bit of value throughout this presentation for you, make it worth your time. As far as my role is concerned, as the slide shows, I am the manager of the channel sales group here at now SoftLayer. As Todd mentioned, I'm coming from the Planet. Actually, I've been in hosting for a little over 4 years. I joined the Planet not too long ago, the early stages of 2010. Before that, I spent a few years at Rackspace. And now, obviously, because of the merger, I'm an employee of SoftLayer. As far as my overall background is concerned, while my experience in hosting is just over 4 years, I've been in IT sales for a little over 11 years, and that experience covers both, really, hardware, software, and now hosting. So it's a well-rounded background as far as the things that I've been exposed to. And that's really about it. My contact information is there as well. Feel free to contact me about any questions regarding SoftLayer's partner program. My responsibility at SoftLayer ultimately is to generate revenue through partnerships. The structure of the program is made up of a reseller program, which is fairly robust, and a referral partner program, which is somewhat new, currently being enhanced for a relaunch in the beginning of 2011. But both, as I mentioned a bit earlier, are there are a lot of benefits for our partners, whether they are resellers or referral partners as a result of this merger, and we're very excited about it. So without further ado, let's get started.
Cool. So just one last piece of housekeeping. Even though Drew has sort of sales in his title, he's not really a sales guy. He runs our partner program, and it's really to help people be successful. And that's really what this webinar is about as well. So this isn't a sales pitch. We really don't do sales pitch webinars because it's not something that I believe in, and it really doesn't help the industry. So this will be very informational, and it will be very unbiased. And so I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. Some of the past webinars that we've done with the WHIR over the last I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months or so, have been a lot of fun, and we like doing these with Liam. The WHIR is a great partner to do these with, so I thought I'd just list the last 4 that we've done. This will be our 5th. They're all available on the WHIR's website at thewhir.com/webinars. You're going to have to search for SoftLayer as well as the planet unless they get retagged. But those are the titles. If this is your first one with SoftLayer, then I would really recommend that you go back and look at some of the previous webinars that we've done. We have a ton of participants that come in and join with us, and really they're quite interactive. So I'd recommend that you guys go check them out if you're new to the industry or just new to these webinars. You know, we put a lot of time into these, and you know, there's just a wealth of knowledge out there. So I just encourage you to go check them out. So, you know, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is automation. It's, you know, an important part of the technology field because, you know, as you look at the hosting industry, it's becoming further commoditized. It started way back in 2000 as dedicated servers became very cheap and very accessible. So one of the things that you need to be mindful of as you're developing your business plan is really automation and where do you need to and where do you want to control your costs. And that's what we're going to help you start to explore today. Now, we're not going to have all the answers for you. We can't because everyone has different business requirements. Everyone's going after different markets. Certainly some types of service offerings require more human touch than others, and others can simply be automated to the fullest extent where it's a full self-service type of approach. So this is really just going to be a guideline to help you identify where there's opportunity to automate, where it makes sense for your business, and then try and find tools that are available out there to help you get past some of those challenges and concentrate on your business and help your customers help themselves, which should hopefully improve really your bottom line, right? Just very succinctly, that, you know, the more that you can have your clients self-service, the less people that you need on staff, and it generally also leads to higher customer satisfaction because they can get to the results that they need quicker. So when you start to think about automation, sort of back it all the way back to your business plan and what do you want to do with your company, and then start to think of how automation starts to play a role. But before we get there, you know, it's important to talk about the market. I've shown this slide a couple of times as we've gone through different webinars, but it's important to realize that, you know, sure, there's thousands of web hosting companies in the United States and around the world. However, the important part here is that the pie is huge, right? And there's lots of opportunity out there for everybody to have a piece of that pie. When you look at the different lines of business here, the different market segments, what you see is, you know, multi-billion-dollar a year industry that continues to grow exponentially. And it's important that we don't worry too much about, you know, whether or not there's enough pie. There certainly is. Now it's what part of that pie do you want to go after? And, you know, this is a grab from Oppenheimer and Company. It's just one of the analysts that we follow internally. And you can see that they have the market growing from roughly $14 billion to $32 billion over a 7-year, 6-year stretch. So, you know, it's important to figure out what your strategy is, put your business plan in play, and then start going after that pie. And then once you are in market, start to tweak and optimize your business, and that's where automation comes in. Next is the Gartner Hype Cycle. This is something that we follow internally as well. Gartner is another analyst group that we follow. We have a great relationship with them. We love working with them. And this is a rendition of one of their hype cycles. So they don't have one that's specific to hosting. So we've taken their emerging technologies hype cycle and sort of stripped out the hosting pieces, and we added cloud in there. You can see that there's 5 different cycles or stages that any specific product or service or market segment can go through. But really what this shows is that the maturity of hosting continues to progress. Now, an important note for any of the hype cycles is that they don't always traverse through the hype cycle at the same speed. So for instance, dedicated hosting and managed hosting traverse that cycle over, say, a 10-year period, where cloud hosting, for instance, will likely get to where managed hosting is in maybe another year or two. So it will have traversed, the same distance in maybe 3 or 4 years versus 10. So as technology increases and research and development dollars are spent, it allows a lot of new products and services to get through this hype cycle much more quickly. But really what this points out is that sort of traditional hosting is very mature, and people understand exactly what you're getting when you go buy shared hosting or you go buy VPS or VDS hosting. And virtualization, obviously, it came down off the inflated expectations pretty hard. Everyone thought that virtualization was going to solve all IT problems, and what people really realized is, well, it's not really going to result in saved money, and it's really not going to result in consolidated hardware, but it will allow us to implement like disaster recovery more easily and allow us to have multiple sites more easily. And so after it came down and went through the trough of disillusionment, people began to realize what exactly virtualization is for. Now, fortunately, cloud leverages the vast majority of what virtualization sort of blazed the path on. So we expect cloud to go through the cycle much, much quicker. What this says is that, even though technologies are changing and different products and service offerings are in different cycles, in their different stages in their life cycle, there's lots available for everybody. And whether or not you're in the co-location game or in the cloud game, or maybe you're in all of them, which certainly is more difficult to manage, but if you're a larger company, it's doable. You can benefit from automation in any one of these segments. So it's important to sort of tailor automation to where a specific product or service is in its life cycle, and then secondly, based on how you're selling your service, can you fully automate it, or can you half automate it, or do you just create tools for your service delivery people to have automation at their fingertips, but not necessarily directly to the clients? So just something to think about. Just a really interesting slide. We keep this pretty updated internally, and there's a much more in-depth one with more sort of emerging market type stuff smattered all over it. And stuff comes off and goes on this thing pretty easily. It's sort of like pin the tail on the donkey as things sort of pop up on the radar and then go away very quickly. So what does this all mean for you? And that's really why we're here today, which is if you operate an existing hosting business, what you can expect is that there's going to be additional entrants into hosting, right? So this is people who are starting a new hosting company today and tomorrow and the day after. We know that that's happening, right? People still believe that there's money in hosting. I still believe that there's money in hosting. You just have to go after the right market and target the right people. Clearly that leads to more competition, so now you're competing more heavily for potentially the same client base. So you end up with something that's a little bit more commoditized. So commoditization can mean a handful of things, but really what it means is it's becoming a well-known quantity. The definition is very clear, and you can get it from multiple parties, and as a result, there's pricing pressure, which drives down costs to consumers, which sort of starts to squeeze the different businesses. And certainly shared hosting is sort of very squarely in the commoditization sort of crosshairs. And what that means is that you need to start to differentiate in order to continue to build your business, to grow your revenues. Otherwise, you'll end up becoming stagnant, and it will be very difficult for you to attract clients. And that dovetails into starting your own hosting company, which is, there's 20-something thousand hosting providers in the United States alone, based on some of the statistics we've seen. Now, they're all different sizes, whether or not they own their own data centers or they're just resellers on top of a shared hosting server. You still have to think about how you're going to attract clients, right? What's your customer acquisition business plan? How do you plan to get to 1,000 customers, 2,000 customers, 10,000 customers, and in what time period? Are you able to do it? Do you have the correct funding? How much do you need to generate in order for this to be a viable business for you, and in what period of time? So, maybe you have an existing job and you're just doing hosting on the side. How much do you have to generate over what period of time for it to be worth it, and do you want to quit your day job? And there's all those different business planning scenarios that you have to start building out and understanding before you can start to make some real decisions. And what's your service delivery model? It's sort of a generic term. However, what it means is, so you provide shared hosting today. Is it going to be very human-based or people-centric, where everyone should call in on the phone to have all of their changes made, or are you going to provide a very thorough and well-built-out customer portal so that your clients can self-service and they rarely speak to you? So start to figure out how you want to deliver service to your customers, and that will be part of your ability to differentiate from the competition, is how you deliver your service. Pricing is certainly an avenue. However, I would strongly recommend against just being the lowest price on the block, because anyone can meet or beat your pricing if they want to, and it's not a great sort of peg to stand on, because someone can easily kick it out from underneath you. So I would definitely focus on service delivery, whether it's portal, whether it's service level agreements, whether it's doing the local businesses only and you can show up at their place of business, or vice versa. Start to think about all those various factors when you start to build out your business plan and try and determine sort of your marketing customer acquisition tactic.
A couple of things I'd like to add. As far as the first section of the slide is concerned, for folks that are considering, or for folks that have an existing hosting business, as the slide from Oppenheimer showed, the total available market for hosting is huge. There are new players joining the game all the time, especially with the increasing interest in all things cloud. And as the slide from Gartner showed, really the definition of cloud is still varies from provider to provider, it seems. It means different things to different people. But the bottom line is, because of the emergence of cloud technology, the interest in hosting is huge, both from the provider standpoint and the consumer standpoint. But the more efficiently and effectively you can serve your customers, obviously the better off your business model is going to be. And from a service delivery perspective, that's certainly a much better value proposition than, as Todd said, being the lowest on price. However, as far as price is concerned, if you're thinking about starting your own hosting business, to find different ways to increase the profitability of your business is certainly obviously important, but automation can certainly help you do that. The more efficiently you can manage your configs, the more time you can spend looking for new business, and also it gives you more room to compete on price, because you've got more room to play as far as that's concerned. So, and the end result is your business is less expensive to run, your margins are higher, and you're able to provide a lot more value for your customers.
Hey guys, can I jump in with a question here?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so Todd, earlier you kind of hypothetically, I think, suggested, when you were talking about your business model, you said, hey, are you going to have a business where your customers call into you every time they want, on the phone, every time they want to make a change to their service or whatever? Well, I understand that was sort of a hypothetical question. Do you see that as being a viable business model at all? I know we're talking about automation here, but I don't necessarily. I mean, my hunch or my instinct is that there aren't a lot of hosting providers out there right now that are going, yeah, I do everything in a completely not automated way. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So it can be a viable business. It depends on who you're going after. So, if you're selling $5 web hosting, I think you're probably going to find it very difficult to actually run a sustainable business if every time someone needs to make a change to their email, they're giving you a phone call. it's certainly very expensive to tie people up on the phone. When you can give self-service tools through automation, then you're literally hands-off unless something can't be done through a portal. That said, though, even today there are businesses where people need that hand-holding. Think of the people who are highly self-serviceable. They're likely tech-savvy, been around technology since they were young. So think of people who have always been around technology. So sort of like myself, I grew up around computers. I had a 3 and 486 when I was growing up. So self-servicing is sort of second nature to me, and I prefer to do it. It's just inherent in my character based on the generation in which I grew up. Now, I also happen to be tech-savvy, so it sort of dovetails perfectly into me being someone who would go after someone who has full automation suite, so I can just do it myself. I get great satisfaction out of just figuring it out myself and not having to burden a company with me calling in. I like my vendors to be sort of like utilities, where your power just comes on and you consume it, and you don't really ever have to talk to someone at the power company. However, there's some companies out there that need the technical expertise because they don't have it in-house, and as a result, that's where you get into a high-touch type of customer relationship so that they can actually do hosting. Now, a lot of those high-touch relationships are much larger companies with much larger hosting deployments. So they're not a couple of $5 shared hosting accounts, but you might see a $10, $15, $100,000 server deployment. Server deployment, and you just build that into your business case that shows that you have ample margin, that you know that you're going to speak to them on the phone for 3 hours a day, and it's going to consume so many hours of different people's time. You can certainly make it work. It just needs to be much sort of higher dollar type of transactions as opposed to smaller $5 type transactions. So yeah, I could make a business case for one or the other very easily. You just have to have the right price, and people need to be willing to pay it. And I think the people who have a lot relying on their hosting infrastructure are willing to pay for the ability to call someone 24/7 to do something for them.
I'd say also, just to add on that as the hosting market has matured, the need for that type of support has decreased. And I'll touch more on this on a subsequent slide, but simply put, the buyers now are much more used to this outsource model. Therefore, they're much more comfortable with this model, and I think it's to the point now where there are a lot of services that they would rather provide on their own because they can do it on the fly as opposed to being dependent on a support team. So while I think there will always be a need for live support 24 hours a day, I think most people these days who are buying hosting, especially in the reseller segment, they want to know it's there, but they don't want to be dependent on it.
Yeah. So Drew's making a very important distinction, which is there's certainly those very high-end buyers that I spoke about, but what we're seeing with the maturity of hosting is that you now have a very large sub-segment of hosting who want to do everything themselves, want to have all the tools available at their fingertips to scale up and scale down and globally load balance and break the globally load balancing and spin up instances in a hybrid hosting type of scenario. But they also want to know that in case something does go wrong, there's still a safety net underneath them of people that they're not paying for but are available to help 24/7. And we've seen that change over the last 4 or 5 years, where there's a more technically savvy WHIR, and certainly they need to be less tech savvy as there's more tools available at their fingertips that allow them to complete complex transactions in a non-sophisticated way. And that's what we're seeing at our company too, where there's just a lot of growth within the self-managed segment because all those tools are available. So that's a big 360 there. Did that answer your question?
I think that answered my question, yeah.
Okay, good. It was a long answer for a short question. So, so we'll keep going here. So this is a slide that I've used internally. I've anonymized it a little bit. We usually have our name and competitors' names, and the values are different internally. But one of the things that we like to do is break down our cost structure internally so that we understand what our operating expenses are, what our capital expenditures are, and then figure out where we can tweak them, where we can make changes to make our company more profitable. Now, a lot of expenses simply scale with growth. They're success-driven. So as you add and acquire more customers, your capital expenditure goes up because you need to buy more servers. That means your electricity goes up. So they're all sort of relational. However, the one that I have circled here, and certainly you can circle a couple others, and there's more categories that you can add here. This is purely an example slide, but payroll is something that is a huge expense, right? Operational expense is big. People are expensive, and it's something that you can help control through automation and have those same people focus on tasks that are that still need to get done, but they're distracted today by having to do stuff that should have been completed by a machine. And what this really points out is, start to ask your people who work for you what they do. And it's not like a weird question on, hey, I want to automate you out of a job, because nobody wants to do that. What we like to do is remove repetitive tasks, because then you can get people working on stuff that matters, right? Improving customer experience, improving revenue, improving profits, and get them away from the monotony of, oh, this ticket is created every 5 minutes for a DNS change, and they've just been doing that for 6 months. And it's not a really great customer experience because it's slow and it's not instant, and then you have someone on your staff who is stuck doing a repetitive job that really isn't satisfying. So I just circled payroll as an example because it's a pretty heavy cost in any business, and that's really where you can start to look at automation. We'll start to talk about this specifically.
I'd say also, or another way to say that is, automation can certainly help from a payroll perspective. As Todd said, we're not talking about automating people out of jobs, but what we're talking about is allowing people to do the jobs you hired them to do. So, for example, if you have developers on your staff, but an increasing amount of their time is spent doing mundane IT tasks, then you're not getting very good return on the money you're spending on that employee. The more of those mundane tasks you can automate, the better return you're going to get from that person, because they can focus on whatever it is you wanted them to do in the first place, whether it's development, writing code, finding new customers, etc.
Cool. So why focus on automation? So we'll just touch on a handful of things on why I think that looking at automation makes a lot of sense for the hosting industry. One is service delivery. So this is actually providing service to your clients, whether it's right at the beginning, which is service fulfillment, so actually providing what the client has purchased, through to the actual tech support, which is the next point. Both are really people-centric, and the reason why I mention people is that, including myself, sadly, we all make mistakes, and that really ends up being a very poor customer experience. We've run multiple customer surveys internally, externally, and the same thing returns to us, which is, had the server been delivered perfectly the first time, then I would have been much more happy. And I didn't like having to spend 2 or 3 hours going back through the provisioning process to get it all fixed up. So that's why we've spent a ton of time on server fulfillment and quality assurance, ensuring that things are delivered the way that you ordered them the first time, and they're set up the same way every single time so that you can count on the server being delivered a certain way so that you're not surprised at all. On the tech support side, it's similar where, people really don't want to call into the call center or into the contact center when they have an issue. They really want to self-service. I want to reboot. I need more IPs. I need to lay down another operating system. People really don't want to talk to other people, especially when they're technically savvy and the tools are available to them. So this can also be a very important point for automation. One of the key examples of this, at least internally here, is all of our DNS changes used to be manual. So there'd be a form within our customer portal that you'd fill out, and it would actually just generate a ticket, and then someone would go and change it. We managed to cut out, it was like 5,000 or 6,000 tickets a month of actual human work by automating, sort of standard DNS change functionality. So that's just, a small example of how you can get rid of mundane tasks and have your people start to focus on the customers and on stuff that matters, as opposed to really menial DNS type change stuff where it doesn't have a huge impact to the overall business. We've already discussed this, so I won't sort of go at this at length, but operating expenses, people are inherently expensive, so you should always have them cranking at 100% on stuff that matters for your business, as opposed to working on stuff that can easily be done by a computer or a script or what have you. And last is scale. I think this is really important when it comes to people as well, which is a lot of companies today, tech companies, are always looking for good people. And the reason for that is it's difficult to find a really great bunch of people within the same geographic area. So, we're in a handful of locations today. It's really hard to find great people. So we're always looking for smart, talented people who will come work for us. And, if you're limited within one specific geographic region, you might have a really hard time trying to find 10 people who understand hosting, who understand Windows or Linux enough in order to work for you and service your clients. So another sort of check mark in the box for automation is, well, finding people is really difficult and really expensive. So automation might be key for your geographic region if you don't have the ability to go after a very large pool of people.
Yeah, it can make your part of the world really irrelevant as far as staffing is concerned. It can empower you to manage configs really as if you were on the DC floor yourself.
So some of the reasons why you should concentrate on automation and why it makes sense. One is it's really easy to increase profits with automation. I mean, almost overnight, as you start to move tasks that were completed by hand into automated tasks, and you can have your employees start to focus on customer satisfaction or customer acquisition, in a heartbeat you'll start to see small sort of baby steps in profit increases. You're not going to see a big 20% swing overnight. That just doesn't happen. As you start to optimize your business, you start to see optimized profits. So it's just small tweaking over time. Increase in customer satisfaction. This is important too. It's often easier to keep a client than it is to attract a new one. And it's also much more cost effective. From our numbers internally, we know that it is much more cost effective for us to keep a client than it is to go find a new one. So we do everything in our power to ensure that our customers are satisfied. And if they aren't, then we figure out a way to make our customers happy. So increased customer satisfaction is easily done through automation when you're dealing with a tech-savvy customer base, because if you give them the tools that they need to handle whatever issue they're going after, they'll be happy and they'll be certain to recommend you. And what you find is not only are you starting to keep clients, but they're also recommending you. And so your customer acquisition costs start to decrease as well. I just touched on this without knowing it too much, but customer retention, increased word-of-mouth referrals. This is really important. You know, we see this in our business, even at our scale. It's even more important at a smaller scale when you have, smaller budgets, which is trying to attract people to your business is really difficult, regardless of the size of your business. Word-of-mouth referrals are, just priceless. When one of your friends comes over and says, hey, I just dealt with Drew Jenkins over at Drew Jenkins Auto Body Shop, and he did a really great job knocking the dents out of the side of my car. Next time that you have an incident in your car, there's a high likelihood that you're going to end up at Drew Jenkins Auto Body Shop. And so we do everything in our power to make sure that people are happy and are also providing word-of-mouth referrals for us.
The other thing about that, as far as referrals are concerned, simply put, satisfied customers refer their colleagues, and when those referrals come across, they are those leads almost always are warmer because they're coming from a credible source. If they're warmer leads, they normally will have a shorter sales cycle because the competition is minimal. The proving yourself on the front end is minimal because that lead did come from a credible source. And then finally, those opportunities normally have a higher ARPU, or they normally generate a bit more revenue than an average deal. So you can't really overemphasize the importance of referrals. And really, number 4 is the result of 1, 2, and 3. If you have a profitable business, that means you are able. That means you're serving your customers very efficiently, and that equates to a positive customer experience. And a satisfied customer sticks around longer, and a satisfied customer refers their colleagues. So they all work together.
Well, you handle number 5.
As far as business development efforts are concerned, this is similar to what we touched on when we were talking about staffing, at least in my opinion. The more efficiently you can run your business, in other words, the less time you have people that are spending on tasks that can be automated, the more time you can spend, or your people can spend, looking for new customers, driving new business, upselling existing customers, etc. So that is certainly a key selling point for automation, or a key, as Todd would say, check mark in the column for automation, because it just frees people up to find new avenues to generate revenue.
Great. So all of this said, you're probably asking yourself, this is great, guys, but where should I start to look for automation? I'm a small shop. Maybe I don't have 10 developers that I can just throw at various things. So what we did is we sort of brainstormed real quick here internally and put together a list of 10, I think it's 10 items that we think that you can start to look at from a hosting perspective on where you can find different areas of automation. And again, these aren't in stacked ranked order, and they apply differently depending on what business you're in today. So one might mean more to you than someone else, but we thought we'd put them all together and you can stack rank them for your own business and help determine what priority you should go and attack them. And certainly this isn't a comprehensive list. There's, probably a couple of hundred things that you could go after initially, but these are sort of the big items that we thought were important that you should start to look at from a hosting perspective. The first one is standardization of data center platforms, and that sounds really generic, and it is because the sales guy wrote that top one. So Drew provided this one, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And what this means is every time that you go and buy a new server, it shows up the same way, and it's very this term has a sort of a negative connotation of a cookie cutter, which means that every time that myself or Drew orders a server from a specific provider, it has the same number of IPs, the operating system is laid down the same way, the RAID is configured the right way, it has the right partitions, it's from the same manufacturer. There's 100 different things that you could go down the list of, but what this helps provide is a foundation for building your business so that you know that every time you go to a specific provider and you order a single 3450 with 8 gigs of RAM and a RAID 10 with 4 disks and what have you, it shows up the same way every single time so that you and your staff know how to attack that specific server that just got turned online. The second piece to this is maybe you've developed a suite of scripts that actually handle new activations. So we have a bunch of clients today that actually have systems that automatically order servers, then automatically provision them, and they're hands-free. So if we were to deliver servers differently every single time, these automation suites would fail for our clients. But a lot of our larger partners have these full-on hooks into our systems that allow them to spin stuff up and spin stuff down without having to speak to anybody. And that's an important part of their business, and it's an important part of our business.
The other thing I'd say about that on a larger scale is not just standardization within the same data center, but standardization of platforms across multiple data centers can really be beneficial for customers that are looking for an efficient way to set up DR environments. And it also helps resellers or partners to be able to provide those services and very quickly with quick provisioning times, because there is that consistency between the platforms, and it's an additional way to add value for your customers.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have a couple of gaming companies that do business with us, and they very quickly spin servers up with us in a handful of our data centers and then globally load balance stuff so that people are always getting to the games the quickest. And what you see is they'll spin up 50 or 100 servers at a given time between 3 or 4 different facilities, globally load balance them, and then whenever the rush sort of ends, they spin them back down. So on top of disaster recovery, global load balancing is very important here too, because you know that whether or not you're buying a server in Seattle or Washington or Dallas, it's all spun up the same way. And as San Jose comes online and Amsterdam comes online and wherever else we decide to expand, it's always going to be the same approach. So as a hosting provider, you should look for something similar so that you're not always fighting with getting something online. It just happens very naturally.
Hey guys, before you go, can I just interrupt for a second?
Go ahead.
Before you go on, I'm guessing you have more than 2 things on this list. I just want to let you know that we're about 50 minutes into the presentation here. Just a time check.
Thank you. Yeah, these. Yep, no, that's cool. Thank you very much. The last few are pretty simple, so we'll make sure that we get everyone out of here on time because we know that your time is valuable. So the next one that we have in line is customer portal and more mobile portal. This is all this automation that we've spoken about, which is for our end users, and we provide a great deal of automation and self-service capability, even across the mobile platform, so that if you're out at the ball game or you're, watching who's going to get the next World Cup and where it's going to belong, if a server fails, you can actually just reboot it from your iPhone or your Android device or what have you. This is really important so that you don't have to wait around for someone to go reboot a server for you. You can go ahead and take care of it for your clients right away. The next one, which is a little bit more in-depth, is the API. So the API is really direct hooks into any given system. So for instance, if you hit a reboot button in the customer portal, there's an API call for the same action. What this means, and if you look at several of our very large providers, many of them don't even log into our portal. They have used automation to the nth degree where they will actually issue reboot commands through the programming interface, and it will just happen for them. So they've fully built it into their own control panel so that their end user can hit reboot in hostingcompany.com's control panel, and it will just go ahead and log into our control panel automatically through the programming interface and take care of the command. So you can actually, fully white label our services from a partner perspective, where the client can do everything that's available to them in our portal today, but through a programming interface. So, Todd Mitchell can go ahead and start his own hosting company. I can leverage the entire SoftLayer platform, white label it so it looks like my own, and clients can do all the actions that any client can do in the SoftLayer portal today, but through Todd Mitchell's hosting company's portal. So it allows you to extend automation to your end client using what SoftLayer has today. This is a great benefit for our large clients. Some of our clients who have 5, 6, 10,000 servers with us, they use and leverage the API very, very heavily. And if you have programming talent in-house or are looking to acquire programming talent, find a hosting provider with a very strong API, because you can add a ton of automation around an API and start to reduce all those sort of menial tasks that crop up all the time.
Hey guys,
Next
can I interject with a question from the audience here?
Certainly, go for it.
So while we're on the subject of automation of server deployment, I guess somebody was asking whether sort of prefab server images that can be deployed on servers ordered, is that something that SoftLayer does offer or is going to offer?
Yeah, so it's something that we offer. There's two ways to look at that. So we can talk certainly specifically about our offering. There's two ways that you can look at that, and it really dovetails into point 4 as well, which is on the cloud side of the business, you can certainly lay down your own operating system, because we use Zen as our hypervisor, which is very extensible, and you can certainly do your own operating system if you'd like on top of those instances. On top of the standard dedicated hardware, we don't have the ability today to allow you to provide your own gold image, if you will. However, because all of our servers are included with KVM over IP, many of our clients who need to use a custom operating system, so maybe they need to use Solaris. It's something that we don't provide today, but they need it for their application. With KVM over IP, you can actually lay down your own custom operating system on top of our hardware without even having to speak to us. So KVM gives you complete remote access to that server, so much so that you can even go into the server's BIOS and change random configs if you'd like. And it also gives you the ability to lay down your own operating system. And many of our clients do that for stuff that we don't currently support today. As we start to expand our cloud offering, there will be the ability to have more functionality around custom operating systems. Today we allow snapshotting within the cloud instances, so you can set up one instance how you like it. So many of our resellers today and our partners have a custom image, if you will, or a custom build. So they take standard Red Hat 6 and then do all these modifications. They install cPanel, they do all their custom scripting, they add this and that and upgrade the software. And then they take a snapshot before they deliver it to the client. And then every time another client orders the same setup, they just lay down that snapshot so they don't have to go through all that fulfillment again. benchmark between cloud and regular dedicated hosting, but you have the ability to do it on both platforms. It's a little bit different because of the way that they're structured. One is obviously dedicated, one's multi-tenant, but both offer similar functionality. So is that, sorry, Drew, go ahead.
Oh, and just one other thing. Through our portal, a customer has the ability also to, this is a little bit more broad than a standard image, but a standard config, for example, or a standard quote can be saved through the portal really for as long as that customer wants it there, and as long as the hardware is available. But the point is, if there are, especially for a reseller, if there are standard configs that they like to deploy, they can save that quote and just go in and with a few clicks have that ordered. It's a very, very fast process.
So does that answer your question, Liam, or to the audience member's question?
Well, yes, it did. The audience member has confirmed it.
Cool. So we have 6 more items. It will probably take us no more than 5 minutes to go through. So just a heads up that we'll probably go a little bit past 2 Central or 3 Eastern time. So if you guys want to hang in there, we'll probably won't be any more than, another 5 minutes.
That just sounds like more bang for the buck to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Value.
So the 5th is rescue kernels. This is sort of in conjunction with KVM over IP. And this is something that a lot of our customers asked us for, which is, hey, I'm running Linux, and something went really wrong on my system, and I'm not sure what happened, and the operating system seems to be all munged up and broken. Rescue kernels allow our clients to reboot into a very lightweight kernel where they can go ahead and access the hardware directly with all the Linux tools that they're familiar with, so they can actually repair their instance. So no longer do you have to sort of lay down an operating system again and rebuild from backups, but the rescue kernel allows you to repair even the most broken operating system install on the fly by yourself without human intervention, and hopefully get your clients up as quick as possible without having to go through a very lengthy backup and restore type procedure.
When that happens, obviously it's an emergency, and the ability to do that on your own time frame is extremely beneficial, as opposed to having to wait for the right technician to get involved to help you get it done.
Next is back-end networking. This is something that we include by default. It's something that when I worked at Site 5, we built out on our own, which was over and above what our hosting providers gave to us. But this is something where we put database servers on the back end, where we put our backup network. I'll traverse the back-end network because it was free bandwidth. It was private and secure. And you can also have management servers that solely sit on the back-end networking in that sort of 10-dot space, where they can go ahead and perform updates and do audits on all of your systems in an automated fashion without having to traverse the actual internet. And a lot of our clients have very large deployments that all sit on the same back-end networking. And they have big control servers that go ahead and do a lot of their automated tasks. So the back-end networking across all their servers is actually very important to their overall operation. It also allows them to perform, backups that don't cost them bandwidth, and they're also very secure because they don't traverse the internet. Next is out-of-band management, similar to the back-end network, although a little bit different in the way that we've set it up. But I also think it's important that you have something that's out-of-band, which really means that, say, for instance, your server is getting attacked. So you're getting DOSed or something equally bad happens. Out-of-band management means that you can still log into your server from the public internet and figure out what's going on without having to go over its public interface, which might be turned off, might be consumed with a lot of inbound bandwidth from a DOS attack. So out-of-band management means that you can, securely, like SSL or PPTP VPN into your server and not have to worry about public-facing stuff. It's just more secure and allows you to get to a server that might be in a distressed state, and it allows you to actually diagnose and repair issues without having to figure out how to log into that box if it is in an offline type state. Integrated and hybrid hosting. This is important from, as we're sort of entering the holiday season, when you're going to have sort of weird capacity planning requirements, and capacity planning might be tough in the holiday season. Some of our larger clients are very seasonal, so maybe they sell gift cards, and we know that, or holiday cards, and we know that around this time of year they have a huge influx in capacity demands. With systems in place that can monitor how much CPU, how much bandwidth, how much RAM is being used, you can actually spin instances up and down with us. And what we've recommended to our clients is have your full-time production gear on dedicated hardware because you know that you'll need it all the time. And as you see bursts, spin up and spin down cloud instances with us. And since cloud instances operate on the same physical network as their dedicated gear, they have all the same benefits, all the same portal functionality. They have all the same back-end and out-of-band management. So it can help your clients keep up with their demand very, very quickly, as you can spin up cloud instances in under 10 minutes, where spinning up a dedicated server might take 2 hours. So you might lose a whole lot of sales in 2 hours, but 10 minutes with an automated system in place to spin it up and provision that server with the snapshotting, you can keep up with demand very, very easily for very little money.
Another thing I'd like to point out that is extremely important when you're looking at different options out there. There are a lot of hosting providers that can provide dedicated and cloud hosting, but it's very important to find one that, from a management standpoint, can provide you with the ability to manage both of those environments from the same place. We're talking about automation. We're talking about efficiencies and adding value to your customers. It's when you have the ability to manage. Well, I would say hybrid means more than just being able to offer dedicated and cloud hosting. You've got to be able to manage it from the same place. Your billing engine has to come, or it has to come from the same billing engine. And those things are not all that common right now the way the market is. If you can find them, it's extremely beneficial.
Great. So we just have 2 more to go, guys, so just hold on a little bit. Second to last is fulfillment guarantees. It falls a little bit under automation, and what I mean by that is you always get what you ordered every single time, so you know what to expect, but you also know in what time frame that stuff will be delivered in, and is it backed by anything. So our cloud instance is delivered in under 10 minutes. Our dedicated servers delivered in 2 hours or less. Are they always delivered the same? It's important that you have a hosting partner in place that can guarantee those things, so that you know that you can worry about acquiring new customers and less on why isn't this installation of Red Hat the same as the one that I got 4 hours ago. And last but not least, and we've already spoken about this at length, so I won't beat it to death, is just gold images and custom images when it comes to cloud. And by spending the time once to do it right and then taking a snapshot and being able to roll that out to 10 or 100 or 10,000 servers instantly is very important if you are in the cloud hosting or VDS or VPS game. And that can save you a ton of time. We have a reseller here who resells cloud hosting and VDS. And for every VDS instance they spun up, they had to spend an hour and a half configuring. And when we introduced the custom images and snapshotting, they saved a ton of time because they no longer had to do all of the cPanel installation. They didn't have to install their custom scripts. It was all done for them, and all they really had to do was one quick software update to make sure that everything was current, and then they delivered to their client very, very quickly, and they didn't have to waste the man time doing something that was very, very repetitive when they were doing it, several hundred times a day for all their new orders. So if you have dedicated servers today, or considering selling cloud servers, or you're in the cloud server business today, providing and offering snapshots to your clients is a very big deal, and it can also help you increase your operational efficiency and further increase your profits by not spending all your time just doing pretty simple customization and just lay down custom images and snapshots. So that pretty much concludes our prepared remarks for today. We've already had a couple of questions. Liam, I don't know if you have a whole bunch that are just sitting in queue back there, but I'll turn it over to you, and if you have any questions, we're more than happy to take them. We got all the time in the world.
Well, I don't have any more questions from the audience. I'm going to, if you guys want to take a few minutes, I had something I was thinking about, which maybe you could talk a bit about how automation might help to facilitate in-person tech support, if you know what I'm asking.
I think I know what you're asking, and it's something that we do internally, but it's certainly something that you can do for more in-person tech support. So if I'm interpreting your question correctly, something that we do around automation, but helps around sort of human-to-human contact, if you will, are the tool sets that are available to our tech support engineers, and even as high up as our network engineering guys who work in our network operations center. We spend a tremendous amount of time creating tools for them, internal tools, that allow them to better service their end user. So, for instance, the Knox end user is really our clients in our tech support center, and our tech support center's end user is really the client that they're speaking to on the other end. And part of customer experience is getting something resolved very quickly and having it done right every single time you call in to have it done, whatever that task might be. So we spend an inordinate amount of time and resources and invest in creating internal tools so that when you call in and speak to Drew and say, hey, Drew, I need to have X, Y, and Z updated, he can say no problem, and the tools are available in front of him through our internal employee portal to get whatever it is done very quickly and done the right way. Now, does that answer your question, or did I take that down a different track?
No, I think that answered my question. I got one more question from the crowd here, which just says, and I'm guessing they're looking for a rough estimate here, but what percentage of users do you never hear from thanks to automation? And then what percent, with the tools in place, do you find still rely on support to handle tasks that they could otherwise do themselves, perhaps because they prefer to have experts do it?
Yeah, it really depends on the segment, because we deal with managed hosting clients who have very high demands and actually have contracted us for things like database administration and network security and disaster recovery. So they'll certainly call in because that's the expertise that they're relying on and they've contracted. When you look at the self-managed side of the business, we have provided a very large suite of self-service tools. And every single tool and function that's available in the portal today is also available in the API. And it's over, I think, 1,600 or 1,800 different calls. So it's a ton of available calls. What this really means is that for clients who are tech-savvy, who are willing to self-service and want to self-service, we're very much the self-service infrastructure service provider. They only call if they really need to speak to us, but I would say that the vast majority of our clients we don't really hear from because we've spent a lot of time speaking to our clients, and we've developed the tools that they're looking for, both from an end user perspective and from a partner perspective. And so all of those different types of users can transact business with us without having to call us or email us. We love to hear from our clients, but we also like to know that our clients can self-service themselves and take care of things very, very quickly without having to have us get in the way. And our clients love it. You know, we have very, very, very high customer satisfaction rates, well into the 90% range, and it's a testament to the tools that we've written, and we know who to go after and who likes our service offering. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, let's make this the last question because we're about 10 minutes past the length we were shooting for, so I think maybe we can wrap up after this one. But somebody was asking, I guess, how much support SoftLayer provides for API deployment and use of the API?
That's a good question. So we have a big staff of developers here. As you can probably tell based on the automation that we in-house have developed. And certainly we have a handful of people that are dedicated to API development because we've made it an internal charter that everything that's available in the portal is available in the API. So we've done a couple of things. One is that if you need any help with the API, we've provided a bunch of code snippets out there in our customer knowledge bases, so you can get clues into how to use the API there. We have our company forum. If you need any additional help, certainly go there and post questions. It's very active, and other people who have developed against the API are more than happy to provide assistance there. We also blog on a regular basis about the API, so I would go back and look at our blog and some of the archives there. And last but not least is we also open sourced a portion of our customer portal. And what you can do is go grab that source code and dig through it yourself if you're looking for very specific snippets of code on how to do an operating system reload or how to order IPs or anything. All the functionalities in there are open sourced. So if the person who asked the question is interested in that open source project, I think it's on GitHub. I'll have to find the specific URL. If they'd like, just send me a quick note so that they can just let me know who they are, and I can put them in touch with that URL. And if they have specific development requirements, I can certainly find someone on the API team to lend them a hand.
I was going to make the same offer because there's a lot of information that's public-facing that we can share regarding the API. The forum that Todd mentioned literally has thousands of members, and at any one time there can be several hundred people in it communicating with one another. So it's a heck of a resource. So yeah, if you're interested, get your contact information, either Todd or myself, and we can certainly point you in the right direction.
Okay, the question asker is going to email you, and also there is a record of the question, so you can email him if you don't hear from him. I think that's probably a good note to wrap things up on, since we're running a little long here, and I do really appreciate everyone who stuck around for your time. Generally, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and for submitting some really great questions. Of course, I want to thank Todd and Drew for providing with some, excellent insight into a subject that is a lot of, or is, really significant to a lot of hosting providers. And finally, I would like to remind everyone that an archived copy of the webinar will be online at thewhir.com/webinars early next week, along with archived copies of a lot of other great webinar content, including the 4 or 5 other ones that Todd has done with the WHIR in the last few months, and those were all similarly great. So thanks, Todd and Drew. Maybe next time we can hear a little bit more about Drew's auto body shop, and hopefully that's a different webinar. And everyone have a great day.